Today's podcast is sponsored by Gaming Lad. You can find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and their links will be in the description. They've got a range of Final Fantasy VII t-shirts, hoodies and mugs, so be sure to check them out. Today I'm joined by three JRPG veterans, StewTube, aka Rob, MegaHarv and SuperDerek. In the previous podcast we talked about the materia system, battle system, the gold saucer, graphics and game depth. And in today's podcast, we're going to look at something a little bit different in the form of paid DLC. Regardless of everyone's thoughts on the DLC, it is inevitable, Rob. And we've been thinking about some concepts with the lads regarding of what this could entail. Final Fantasy VII in general has got so much untapped potential with regard to backstory and lore surrounding the characters. But one thing we really don't want to see is the DLC affecting the main storyline, is it?
Yeah, it would be best if it didn't. And I think that a lot of the old school guys that play the original back in the 90s would probably not be very happy if they started adding stuff and taking away stuff from the main storyline with their DLCs. But unfortunately, we did hear not too long ago that there would be some alterations to the main story. So yeah, I'm worried that the DLCs might end up affecting the game and taking stuff away and altering the story, but I hope that's not the case.
I'd like to think that the main, I suppose, the linear main story mode, so everything that we know from 97 won't be affected. But maybe, Derek, maybe the DLC could add some depth into the actual storyline itself, regarding the character's lore.
It would be really nice if the DLC could go into explore a lot of the events that we didn't get to experience firsthand during the original game, that were just simply alluded to as happening off screen, and maybe through DLC we could see a little more detail into what exactly went on. For instance, when Cloud was on his way back to Midgar. After Zack died, or, that sort of thing.
What I find interesting about the flashback scene from the Shinra Mansion where Cloud obtains the Buster Sword from Zack is how he's all messed up from the Mako poisoning still. And it would be quite a tall order for him to make it from the spot where he was to Midgar, especially considering the levels of the enemies when you leave Midgar. Plus, if we're building the game to scale, that might be quite a journey. It's just a wonder how he even made it in the first place.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that making it all the way to Midgar, I guess Final Fantasy VII, he starts off at level 5? So getting to Midgar at level 5, how do you survive the journey from all the way there while just messed up on the Mako? That would be pretty interesting to kind of follow that. And see maybe how his being affected by the Mako would actually maybe affect the way he controls. That'd be pretty interesting.
I am curious, too, how he got into contact with Barrett in order to join Avalanche on that bombing run. There's absolutely no alluding to how that came to be. Because, as you know, the game just starts off with you jumping off the train. So it'd be interesting to see Cloud make contact with Barrett for the first time.
Yeah. It'd also be good to know how he actually basically got off the Mako, so to speak, as well. How it all cleared up and how, did anybody help him in the sense of when he, later on in the game when he falls into the live stream and he's all over the place again and Tifa's with him. Did anybody help him the first time around as well?
He was picked up by a police officer, actually, and he was sent to Mako Rehab. He got a ticket for Mako paraphernalia. Thankfully, it's just a misdemeanor.
It's all hearsay. I think we're all agree that the DLC can't affect the main storyline, but anything surrounding the characters half could work. The characters in particular, maybe a bit of Vincent, or maybe characters that we don't even necessarily control, as in Seto, Nanaki's father, and the history around the G-Tribe, the attack on Cosmo Canyon. Maybe that would be a good DLC package for us.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great one there because they had they pretty much imply that there's this whole wartime thing that happened that we never really get to glimpse at. We just kind of see the ramifications of it.
Yeah, so maybe you could even control Seto for a good few hours regarding, in it with the G Tribe, actually attacking Cosmo Canyon. You could actually control Seto, Rob. I know you wanted to see that DLC implemented.
Yeah, that would be cool. It would be interesting to know like more backstory of the G Tribe and like where they're from, why they're fighting Cosmo Canyon in the first place. If there's any correlation between them and the ancients, that'd be pretty cool. Also, where they lived. They didn't live in that dungeon where Seto was. I'd be curious to know if you could even tie the G Tribe into the ancient forest that you can explore after you take down Ultima Weapon. I think it's Ultima, the flying one. Yeah, it'd be cool if that place was maybe even bigger, and that's where like the backstory or the DLC about them took place. Like there could be like a whole little village up there or something. Definitely feel like the G Tribe is something that could be explored quite a bit more. They could almost have been maybe a separate tribe of the ancients, maybe something like that. That'd be cool.
The only problem with the DLC surrounding Seto and the G Tribe and Cosmo Canyon is that you would literally be using Seto or characters that they make for that particular DLC. What I'd like to actually see in the DLC is it being implemented into the main story, your main level, your main character's skill tree or whatever. So that kind of wouldn't happen unless they based the Seto DLC on him being, because he's in stone, isn't he, in the game? Maybe the DLC could, I don't know, maybe go on him getting pure, basically a remedy that released him from it, and he talked about the G Tribe, and maybe, I don't know, maybe a way that it could happen after, so you could use all the main characters. Maybe that'd be something that they could look at. Derek, you've been playing RPGs for quite a long time now. Obviously, when you first started out, DLC wasn't even a thing. It was just a game, and that was it. What's important to you that they get right with the DLC, and what DLC would you like to see implemented in the remake?
So yeah, Final Fantasy is definitely a series that holds like an important place in my heart and in my history as a fan of RPGs, JRPGs specifically. And I feel like in Final Fantasy VII, it's really got a lot of hype to live up to. And one of the things I would really hope that they avoid is making DLC that's changes the experience too much from what the original was.
Another DLC idea, which I suppose we've already touched on, really, about basically the formation of Avalanche, Derek. So we talked about the possibility of DLC about how Cloud met Barrett, but what we don't really know much about is how Tifa became in touch with Barrett, Jesse, Biggs and Wedge, and how the formation of Avalanche. So I suppose that'd be an idea we could explore through DLC.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suspect that they just like had, flyers out, join Avalanche today, take down Shinra and become a terrorist, You probably don't have a whole lot of that bringing people together. So what I'd like to see is what were the individual circumstances for each person, Biggs, Wedge, bringing them together into Avalanche, and it would be really interesting to see like what their motivations are for joining. Like, did Biggs' mother get killed by a Shinra guy, or who knows? We don't know, but that would be something that'd be really cool to find out and to help us develop that
relationship. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I suppose it's a case of like, as well, each of those characters, they were brought together by the effect that Shinra had, as you say, on their personal lives. So, as you say, it'd be good to see how they decided, you know what, I want to take down Shinra. Rob, the Avalanche is a big... It's a big part of Final Fantasy VII that just has not been... It's just untapped, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because Square Enix, in the early 2000s, they released a mobile game. I think a lot of people have probably heard of it. It's Final Fantasy VII Before Crisis. It actually chronologically takes place before Crisis Core. And in that game, it actually depicts Shinra. The game depicts Avalanche as being like a much bigger organization, too, which is really interesting. There's even your standard foot soldiers. And I want to say that the game follows the storyline of the Turks interacting with Avalanche. And there was a female lead protagonist that worked in Avalanche. I've never played it. There's actually no English version, I don't believe. I think there's some fan translations here on YouTube. Yeah, I think a DLC talking about the formation of Avalanche would be really cool. And I know at one point in time, when you first go to Cosmo Canyon and everyone's hanging out at the little bonfire, Barrett actually talks about how that was... I'm pretty sure he says that's where Avalanche was formed. And he had promised Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse that one day they would return there after they defeated Shinra.
Ah, right, yeah. I remember that, actually. I really do. So in theory, the Avalanche story DLC, if they were to go down that route, could be a really big part of the game. In fact, it could be one of the main, maybe DLC options that would make people buy it, Harv, because you could tie that in with what you mentioned before about how Cloud met Barrett.
Yeah, and them even traveling from Cosmo Canyon to Midgar, like that in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what kind of stuff they encountered in the meanwhile. Who else they may have even lost along the way that they just didn't talk about in the main game.
Yeah, because they could bring characters into the game that necessarily we haven't heard of before. In that sense, which could then make your parties bigger. If you were to fight, for instance, with Barrett and Tifa, for instance, they wouldn't, they might have formed before the other three, for instance, and then the characters that maybe died along the way or literally just tailed off and the story never in 97 didn't actually include them, so you could actually have maybe more playable characters as well.
I know one thing is for sure, there's a lot of people in the world that hate Shinra. Just about every place you go to, there's people that hate them. You have all the people at Fort Condor, you've got the people that live underneath Junon. Gongaga pretty much exploded. Those people don't like him. Wutai doesn't like him. It'd be cool to see, the founding people of Avalanche going like from small community to small community trying to recruit people. There's plenty of people that hate Shinra.
Yeah, they're practically the Comcast of the Final Fantasy world.
Oh my god.
And it'd be really interesting, like you said, it depicted, in Before Crisis, it depicted Avalanche as being a much larger organization. It might be interesting to find out why we only ever see a handful of them in mainline Final Fantasy VII. Like, did something happen that, just cut them down to size?
That could explain Barrett's determination to pretty much go on a suicide run, blowing up Mako reactors in Midgar. There's plenty of reactors in other parts of the world, so yeah, I mean, they could come up with some type of huge massacre that happened or something like that.
Yeah.
There's loads of sectors as well in Midgar that we just don't even get a chance to explore. Now, whether they implement that in the main game, where Midgar is a bigger place and you can actually go around all these areas and do side missions and stuff, is another story, but that's one side of it they've never really talked about. So as you say, Avalanche could have been greater. They could have either arrested or killed sections of Avalanche in all these small communities. So yeah, the possibilities are endless, to be honest with that particular idea. Rob, another DLC idea which came to light a few days ago was the war at Wutai with the Shinra. And Yuffie's motivation to obviously get materia and why it's so important to her. I think it was her father that dealt with the war between Wutai and Shinra. Is that another possibility of DLC right there?
Yeah, they could actually potentially condense Crisis Core down for a DLC, because I know a lot of Crisis Core takes place during the Wutai War, but in the actual main Final Fantasy VII game, they allude to it a lot. It's made out to be something that was very important in the history of the world. I think that's Eris's mother, not her actual mother, but, her surrogate mother from Midgar. I know there's a scene where she tells a story about how she kept waiting at the train yard for her husband to come back from the war, and he never showed up. And then one day, Eris's mom showed up with Eris, and her mom, Eris's mom died and left her to the lady. And I want to say that there was even talks about like the Junon's big giant cannon was built because of the war with Wutai. And I'm pretty sure that Yuffie, the reason why she wants the materia is to take back to Wutai to try to sell to help rebuild the economy. Either that or to give Wutai a way to fight Shinra. I can't really remember for sure, but I know that the game alluded to the war being a pretty important part of the history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also as well, Harv, what we don't really know about Yuffie is when we actually come across her, she's out in the world trying to find the materia. She's already on a mission to help rebuild Wutai. So maybe that's something that he could, how we got to that point, so to speak, with Yuffie.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that how you can only find her in the woods. So it's like, did she catch wind of some sort of myth about a materia in the woods? Like, rather than finding her in a town or her, like, trying to steal your materia, then you, like, smack her around and she decides to follow you or anything.
Yeah, maybe it's just because she feels people are easier to rob in the woods. I don't know. Not too sure. But
she's a ninja.
Yeah, true. She is. So I think it's fair to say we've come up with some really plausible DLC ideas that, a lot of us would like to see implemented in the game. But the one main DLC point that we haven't touched upon yet, but would probably be the biggest, if not the best DLC, Rob, is that of Sephiroth himself. He could actually have his own spin-off game, couldn't he?
Yeah, I think that he could. It would be really cool to play as like a younger Sephiroth, slowly working his way up the ranks of soldier, with the big climactic ending at the Nibelheim Shinra Mansion. I think that'd be really cool. You could even also tie in like the Turks into there somehow. It would be cool to see like the Turk, because for a long point in the game, the Turks as well as Avalanche were both chasing Sephiroth. It would be cool to see some gameplay from the Turks' perspective, also trying to chase down Sephiroth. You could probably make that into two separate DLCs, but they're both basically surrounding Sephiroth. It would be cool to see a young Sephiroth work his way up the soldier ranks, though. I think that'd be really cool. It'd be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm thinking, Derek, in my head, personally, regarding the Sephiroth, there's got to be some DLC surrounding him. I'm actually thinking in my head of what Rob's just said, starting off as, like, say, a young cadet of whatever in Soldier or however he got to where he is. But then I'm on about following his backstory right through to the end until he meets Cloud. So the whole reading the books in Nibelheim, where he starts losing it, then his travelling to the Ancients, any bosses that he would have fought through the way, because he wouldn't have just been able to walk in and walk out. And then basically the way we see Sephiroth in the 97 version every now and again in a cutscene with Cloud, basically it's basically shoe on the other foot. So we'll see Cloud, for instance, take the black materia and give it him in the Temple of the Ancients, so to speak, and follow it straight back up to when he finds himself in the North Crater.
Yeah, that'd be really amazing.
It'd be big.
Could you imagine the feeling that's the Eris's final moments from that perspective, where you it's, I don't know, it might say like press X to pay respects, I guess.
It'd just be a good perspective, wouldn't it, in general, from the beginning to the end?
Man, could you imagine putting the player in control of Sephiroth as he, that would just be insane to like flip the script, a little bit. and just say, all right, now the player is the one who will coup de grace, you know? Could you imagine like being the person to actually push the button that makes Sephiroth swing his sword?
I don't want to be that guy.
I know, but that's what the DLC, if that's what you're talking about, is a DLC from the perspective of Sephiroth, that's got to be in it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Can make like a really...
Eris has got to die.
you could make it like, everything goes like the game pauses, Sephiroth's coming down, and there's really, you've got his music playing in the background with the opera, with flashes of Genova or something. You just you have to press X to continue. The game's just going to sit there and not progress until you press the button. So it's either press the button or continue listening to the horrifying music and the flashing screen and all the creepy stuff.
That'd be so cool. Harv, any thoughts on a Sephiroth DLC?
Sephiroth doing that in a sympathetic light at all, that could be a very interesting concept. We're still probably not going to like him very much, but we could at least understand more so what he was going through.
Yeah, no one's the bad guy in their own mind.
It'd be cool if they wrote it in a way that almost made you feel sympathy for Sephiroth, despite, hating him and everything.
Right.
And I know that there's a huge debate in the Final Fantasy VII communities across the internet about who was in control of Sephiroth. Was Genova in control of Sephiroth and using him? Or was Sephiroth in control of Genova using her? So that's something that they could explore, I think.
Either way, whatever they do, there's got to be some DLC on Sephiroth, and I think we all agree it'd be amazing. So, Derek, another thing you said in the Discord chat earlier today was poor DLC and how it will implement the game in general. What's your thoughts on really bad DLC?
Well, as a gamer who grew up without DLC introduces a lot of factors that could potentially ruin a game, especially if the game relies on you purchasing that DLC to make the game feel complete. And also, I feel like a lot of people are hesitant when it comes to things like microtransactions. And one way that I could see this happening, and maybe it's just my mind being, going to the worst case scenario, but loot packs or loot crates, I guess, for winning the chocobo races would be, terrible, or pay to win sort of mechanics for doing better in chocobo races or in the snowboarding mini games. But I'm also concerned about maybe they'll be introducing some sort of I think I joked about this a little bit earlier about how you can how at one point Cloud dresses in drag, right? Mm-hmm. I was thinking it'd be pretty interesting if we could have some sort of a character creation menu to where you could doll up Cloud to your liking. And at that point, it occurred to me they could definitely sell these bits of customization as, bits of microtransaction. You could customize Cloud. You could give him eyeliner for $1 or, blush or rouge or whatever. And then it also occurred to me that it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to just Cloud. I imagine that there's a lot of gamers out there who would pay a lot of money to customize various other party members. I'll just leave it at that. And I just kind of hope that that when it does come to Square implementing DLC, that they don't just go the cheap and easy route of $1 here and there for just little character customizations. I feel like it's nice that if they are there, but I'm kind of the opinion that nickel and diming gamers for things that should just already be included is something that I'm really concerned about. Especially since they're already breaking the game up into several pieces, and in a way you might even be able to consider the various new episodes that they're coming out with as a form of DLC. The rest of the game is a DLC after the first episode, I guess.
kind of like what Derek's talking about. That's how they did a lot of the DLCs for Final Fantasy 15. And there was also like extra outfits you could buy. And
that was just about what I was going to say about the costume DLCs.
Right. I mean, I don't mind those to an extent because they're just cosmetic. But if they start to like if you want to get Cloud's nail bat or his organics weapon or, different, charging you for weapons that were in the game in the first place is not cool. And I also don't like how Final Fantasy 15, the DLCs worked. Like the little episodes were okay. They were really, really short, which wasn't cool. But the biggest thing that irritates me about 15, and I like 15. I think it's a really good game, and I feel like it's a fairly decent model for a modern day Final Fantasy game. But if you bought the season pass, now they have the Royal Edition, which isn't included in the season pass. You have to pay more for that. So
wasn't that the point of a season pass in the first place, was to give you like unrestricted access to everything that they would make?
Exactly.
And do you know what the weird thing about the Royal Edition is? I purchased it the other day. It's not even easily accessible. You've got to go back a chapter. If you've completed the game and you're at the end game point, I believe. I haven't even played it because I haven't worked out how you access it. I read online you've got to go back to chapter 14. And then when you go back there, it doesn't actually tell you what to do. But it also says something about certain aspects of your build, whether it's being leveled up or weapons that you found. I don't quite know. But some of that won't carry over as well, which I can't actually get my head around. So this Royal Edition, by all sounds, it sounds like it's really good. Why didn't they just make it accessible of going to, like, when you loaded up the game and you went to your quest menu, there was a quest there where it said, obviously not Royal Edition, but there was another story mode, basically, quest option, which was then the Royal Edition. So even though it's not, as well as not being implemented into the season pass, it's not actually easily accessible without having to go back in the story.
Basically, my main concern with the DLC is that they're going to do like the unthinkable part, which seems like the whole like moral of the story in the game is they'll be like, pay us, X number of dollars and get Ares back. It's like that's not how the story is originally written. It just seems kind of like cheap and like against the moral of the story if we're just going to like pay to get her back. Like, I don't know. Like, I think if we just had, like, as we were talking about the, like, Eris's journey, if she had her own side quest, that should be like the compromise. Like, you still get to use her somewhat, but then the story will remain unaffected outside of that. It'll just expound on, getting to know her a little more before, she gets
a reckoning.
Yeah.
Harv, Final Fantasy 15 dabbled into some DLC regarding multiplayer. I'm not too sure how it worked personally myself. I haven't played it, but multiplayer in the remake, would that be something that you'd like to see?
Oh yeah, multiplayer in the remake would be amazing. Like, I haven't played 15's multiplayer either, but I don't have any opinions as far as that's concerned. But if you're able to get a bunch of your friends together to play Final Fantasy VII Remake in any capacity, even if it's like if you could do it in the main story, like online co-op, or if it's just like a side mission where you get to do cooperative mode, that would just be, I feel like that would be a very welcome addition to the whole story.
So using the main characters, I suppose, Rob, as well, would be, I suppose, it'd be hard to implement, but it would be something they should look at, really.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to have some sort of special battle arena inside of the Golden Saucer where you can fight other people, other players, and you could even include their whole entire party. The reason why I say that is I remember when I was a kid, me and my friends used to brag about, oh, my party could beat your party. My party from Final Fantasy IX could beat your party from Final Fantasy VIII. So I think it would be cool to actually implement that somehow. Oh. And I mean, it would be strange to have a Cloud fighting a Cloud, but really all you would have to do is just, your opponent just gets randomly generated sprites so to speak, but you know,
so it'd be PvP.
Yeah, I think PvP would be really cool, personally.
Well, the way they could, if you wanted to play alongside each other in the story, for instance, there are other games that have implemented this, isn't there, Derek? So, say for instance, I was up to the Gold Saucer, or well, when you go across on the when you get the buggy, for instance, but you were only as far as, say, the Chocobo Ranch. If I was to join your session, I would basically start it, you know, because you're the least furthest, we'd start at your point. So could they implement that in the remake, maybe?
So yeah, I think that that's something that they could definitely bring in, and I think it could be something as simple as, you know, maybe there's various sprites that would be made, or like characters for that area. Like, I don't know if it was at the very beginning, it could be the person who's co-oping with you could look like other Avalanche members, or something like that, so that they could fit into the story and help you along. That would be really cool.
One thing we've agreed on with all these topics we've brought up is anything that they bring out DLC has got to be thoroughly thought out. You know, they can't throw willy-nilly subjects on such a nostalgic game. And as long as the main storyline is intact, I suppose everybody will be happy. Well, all that's left to do is thank everybody for joining me today on the podcast. It's been much appreciated. Rob, do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you? Do you want to plug your current project?
Yeah, I stream all kinds of classic PS1 JRPGs, as well as a little bit of PS1 survival horror here on YouTube. My link is in the description if you want to check it out. Stop by, say hi. And that is pretty much it.
Right, so MegaHarv, again, thanks for obviously joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Do you want to give the guys a little rundown of what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. It's a pleasure's all mine. No, I do my YouTube at MegaHarv, and I do daily streams or uploads. By the time this goes live, I should be starting on Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age on PS4, but I generally focus around, much like Rob, the PlayStation 1 games mostly. For right now, just through popular requests, I've been doing. Gonna move on to Final Fantasy 12. So yeah, you can find me at MegaHarv, and if you want to get notified when I go live, you can follow me on Twitter as well at OMegaHarv, much like Omega Weapon.
Yeah, cool. I'll put all the links in the description. Obviously, but I'll be sure to check out the stream. Sounds like Final Fantasy 12 be worth tuning in for. I haven't actually seen much of that game for a while, so it'd be good to relive that. SuperDerek, would you like to plug what you're doing, mate?
Yeah, so I actually review RPGs and stream them on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/SuperDerek. Currently playing through Xenogears, and that's going to be the next game that I review. And I like RPGs.
and also, SuperDerek is on Twitter. The link will be below as well.
My name Jeff.
No, it's been brilliant, guys, and hopefully we've got an idea for the next podcast as well, haven't we? In the next couple of weeks, so we'll brainstorm on that, and hopefully we'll have something to bring everybody. But yeah. Thanks for listening this long, and take care.